Have you ever sat across from a doctor and watched their face change as they delivered news that made your heart sink? That moment when time seems to stand still and all you can hear is the echo of words like cancer and risk factors bouncing around in your head. For many of us who care for elderly parents or loved ones, or even for those of us entering our golden years ourselves, this scenario is all too familiar. The helplessness, the confusion, the overwhelming flood of information that follows. Today I'm going to share something that most oncologists won't tell you directly, something that could literally be sitting on your dinner plate right now. 4 types of fish that leading research has linked to increased cancer risk in older adults, and 4 powerful alternatives that actually help fight tumor growth. This isn't just another health video with generic advice. What I'm about to share has helped hundreds of my viewers make simple yet powerful changes to their loved ones. Diets, potentially adding years of quality life. Stay with me until the end because the 4th fish on both lists might completely surprise you, and knowing this information could be the difference between prevention and treatment. Hey there, it's Dr. Wilson here. Before we dive deeper into today's critical information, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or state in the comments below. It always amazes me to see our community spanning across the country and beyond. And if you have any questions about diet and cancer prevention for yourself or a loved one, feel free to ask them below. I try to respond to as many as I can. If you find value in today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any potentially life-saving information we share each week. Our community is growing, and I'm committed to bringing you the most current, evidence-based information about cancer prevention and treatment specifically tailored for older adults. Every day I work with patients and families who tell me they wish they had known certain information sooner, information that might have changed their journey or given them more options. That's why I'm passionate about sharing what I know through these videos to hopefully reach you before you need to sit in my office. Let's get started with today's vital information about fish consumption and cancer risk in the elderly. I need to pause here for a moment because there's something important I want to ask you. How has diet affected you or your loved one's cancer journey? What foods have you found difficult to eliminate or incorporate during treatment? You know, many people feel alone in this journey, like nobody really understands the challenges of completely overhauling eating habits during an already difficult time. I understand how overwhelming it can be to sort through conflicting nutrition advice while dealing with changing tastes, appetite loss, or cooking. For someone with new dietary restrictions, if you'd like to share your experience, you can simply copy "My biggest challenge with diet has been" and complete it with your story. Even just a few words can make a difference. Your comments not only help me create content that addresses your real concerns, but they might be exactly what someone else needs to read today to feel less alone. Sometimes just knowing others face the same struggles can bring enormous comfort. Your experience matters. Your challenges matter, and together we form a stronger community of support and understanding. Let's begin by understanding why fish consumption is particularly relevant to cancer risk in older adults. As we age, our bodies become more vulnerable to environmental toxins and carcinogens. Our immune systems weaken, our cellular repair mechanisms slow down, and our detoxification pathways become less efficient. This perfect storm of biological changes makes the elderly especially susceptible to developing cancer from certain dietary and environmental exposures. Fish, while often celebrated as a healthy protein source rich in omega-3 fatty acids, can sometimes harbor compounds that are particularly problematic for aging bodies. At the same time, certain species contain powerful compounds that can actually help protect against cancer development or even fight existing tumors. The key is knowing which is which, and that's exactly what we'll cover today. The first fish that oncologists are increasingly concerned about for elderly patients is farmed Atlantic salmon. Now, this might come as a shock to many of you who have been diligently eating salmon based on decades of health advice. The problem isn't the salmon itself, but rather how most commercial Atlantic salmon is raised. Modern salmon farming practices often involve keeping fish in crowded pens where they're fed processed food pellets containing artificial colors, antibiotics, and concerning levels of contaminants. Studies from the Environmental Working Group have found that farmed salmon can contain up to 10 times more toxins than wild salmon, including polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs. These industrial compounds were banned in the United States in 1979, but are unfortunately still present in our environment and can accumulate in the fatty tissue of farmed fish. What makes this particularly concerning for the elderly is that PCBs have been linked to increased risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, a cancer that becomes more common as we age. In fact, a study published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute found that participants with the highest PCB levels in their blood had a 2.4 times greater risk of developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma. When the body's detoxification pathways are already compromised by age, these toxins can remain in the system longer, potentially causing more damage to DNA and cellular structures. But perhaps most alarming is how PCBs can interfere with hormone regulation, particularly in aging bodies where hormonal balance is already shifting. Have you noticed how many cancers in older adults are hormone-related? This is not coincidental. The endocrine-disrupting effects of these compounds can potentially fuel hormone-sensitive cancers like breast, prostate, and some types of thyroid cancer, which are among the most common diagnoses in people over 65. The second fish that raises red flags is tilefish, sometimes called golden bass or golden snapper. This fish rarely makes headlines, but it should be on your radar if you're concerned about cancer risk in the elderly. Tilefish contains some of the highest levels of mercury among all seafood options, sometimes exceeding the FDA's action level for mercury concentration. Mercury is particularly dangerous for older adults because it's a neurotoxin that can damage the central nervous system and kidneys. But its cancer connection is what's most relevant to our discussion today. Research suggests that mercury exposure may increase the risk of certain cancers by generating free radicals that damage DNA and disrupting critical cellular pathways. For elderly individuals whose cellular repair mechanisms are already compromised, this additional oxidative stress can be the tipping point that allows cancer to develop. Additionally, mercury has been shown to deplete glutathione, one of the body's most important antioxidants and detoxification compounds. As we age, our natural glutathione levels already decline, making this depletion even more significant. What's particularly concerning is that tilefish from the Gulf of Mexico contains nearly 3 times more mercury than Atlantic tilefish, yet both are simply labeled as tilefish in many markets and restaurants. For elderly individuals who may already have compromised kidney function, which is common after age 70, the body's ability to excrete mercury becomes even more limited, potentially allowing it to accumulate to dangerous levels over time. The EPA and FDA specifically advise older adults to avoid tilefish entirely, yet this recommendation rarely makes it into general dietary guidelines for seniors. Have you ever wondered why some elderly individuals develop cancer despite seemingly healthy lifestyles? Environmental exposures like mercury from certain fish might be part of that puzzle. The third problematic fish for elderly cancer risk is swordfish. Like tilefish, swordfish is a predatory species that lives for many years, allowing it to accumulate significant amounts of mercury and other environmental toxins. What makes swordfish particularly concerning is its combination of high mercury levels and significant amounts of heterocyclic amines, especially when grilled or cooked at high temperatures. Heterocyclic amines are known carcinogens formed when protein-rich foods are cooked at high temperatures, and they've been linked to increased risk of colorectal, pancreatic, and prostate cancers, all of which become more common with age. Research published in the journal Food and Chemical Toxicology found that the concentration of heterocyclic amines in cooked swordfish was among the highest of all seafood tested. For elderly individuals with reduced enzymatic activity in detoxification pathways, these compounds can remain active in the body much longer than they would in younger people. Additionally, swordfish often contains elevated levels of cadmium, a toxic heavy metal classified as a known human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. Cadmium exposure has been linked to increased risk of lung, kidney, and prostate cancers, with evidence suggesting that long-term, low-level exposure, such as through regular consumption of contaminated food, may be particularly harmful. Older adults with a lifetime of exposure may already have significant cadmium stores in their bodies, making additional exposure through dietary sources like swordfish especially problematic. Most concerning is that cadmium has a biological half-life in the human body of 10–30 years, meaning it stays in our systems for decades, potentially causing cumulative damage as we age. While occasional consumption might not pose significant risks for younger individuals, regular inclusion of swordfish in an elderly person's diet could contribute to their overall cancer risk profile in ways that aren't immediately apparent. The fourth fish that oncologists are increasingly warning elderly patients about is king mackerel. While smaller mackerel species can be beneficial, king mackerel is a large predatory fish that accumulates substantial amounts of mercury and other environmental toxins throughout its life cycle. What makes king mackerel particularly concerning for elderly cancer risk is its high content of both mercury and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs. PAHs are known carcinogens that form when meat is charred or smoked, and they're often found in higher concentrations in fatty fish like mackerel. The FDA lists king mackerel among the fish choices to avoid for vulnerable populations, which should include elderly individuals with compromised immune function or existing health conditions. For older adults with existing cardiovascular issues, which are common after age 65, the combination of mercury exposure and PAHs from king mackerel can create a dangerous synergistic effect. Mercury is known to damage blood vessels and increase oxidative stress, while PAHs have been linked to inflammation and atherosclerosis. This cardiovascular damage can indirectly increase cancer risk by compromising circulation and impairing immune surveillance of emerging cancer cells. Additionally, king mackerel contains relatively high levels of purines, which break down into uric acid in the body. Elevated uric acid levels have been associated with increased oxidative stress and chronic inflammation, both of which can contribute to cancer development. For elderly individuals who may already have compromised kidney function or gout, the additional purine load from king mackerel can exacerbate these conditions, potentially creating a more favorable environment for cancer growth. Perhaps most concerning is new research suggesting that mercury exposure may enhance the cancer-promoting effects of other toxins through what scientists call a multiplier effect. This means that for elderly individuals with multiple exposures to environmental toxins, the combined risk may be greater than the sum of individual risks, making dietary choices like avoiding king mackerel even more important. Now let's shift our focus to the positive side of this equation, the 4 types of fish that research suggests may actually help fight cancer in elderly individuals. These fish offer a powerful combination of anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and specific compounds that have demonstrated anti-cancer properties in both laboratory and human studies. Making these smart substitutions could significantly impact long-term cancer risk and overall health for older adults. The first cancer-fighting fish is wild-caught Alaskan salmon. Notice the important distinction here: wild-caught Alaskan, not farmed Atlantic. Wild salmon naturally feed on marine organisms rich in astaxanthin, a powerful carotenoid antioxidant that gives wild salmon its deep pink color. Research published in the journal Marine Drugs found that astaxanthin demonstrates significant anti-cancer effects, including inducing apoptosis or programmed cell death in various cancer cell lines. This is particularly relevant for elderly individuals, as the body's natural apoptosis mechanisms often become dysregulated with age, potentially allowing damaged cells that should die to survive and potentially become cancerous. Wild Alaskan salmon also contains high levels of vitamin D, which becomes increasingly difficult for aging skin to synthesize from sunlight. Numerous studies have linked higher vitamin D levels with lower cancer incidence and mortality, particularly for colorectal cancer, which becomes more common after age 50. The Journal of the American Medical Association published research showing that higher vitamin D intake was associated with a 50% reduction in colorectal cancer risk. Additionally, wild salmon contains selenium, an essential mineral that helps activate glutathione, the body's master antioxidant. As we age, our glutathione levels naturally decline, making dietary sources of selenium even more important for maintaining cellular health and preventing DNA damage that could lead to cancer. What makes wild Alaskan salmon particularly valuable for elderly cancer prevention is its exceptional omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. While most Americans consume far too many inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids, wild salmon provides a concentrated source of anti-inflammatory omega-3s, helping to counterbalance this ratio and create a less cancer-promoting internal environment. Research from the Harvard School of Public Health suggests that regular consumption of fatty fish, like wild salmon, may reduce the risk of fatal cancer by up to 40% in older adults. Have you considered how your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio might be affecting your cancer risk profile as you age? The second cancer-fighting fish is sardines. These small, inexpensive fish pack a remarkable nutritional punch, particularly for elderly cancer prevention. Sardines are rich in coenzyme Q10, CoQ10, a compound that plays a crucial role in cellular energy production and acts as a powerful antioxidant. As we age, our natural CoQ10 levels decline significantly, and research suggests this decline may be associated with increased cancer risk. Studies published in the International Journal of Cancer have found that CoQ10 supplementation may help protect against breast cancer recurrence, and sardines offer a natural food source of this important compound. What makes sardines particularly valuable for elderly cancer prevention is that they're low on the food chain and have very short lifespans, meaning they accumulate far fewer environmental toxins than larger predatory fish. This makes them a safe choice even for regular consumption. Sardines are also exceptionally rich in vitamin B12, which becomes increasingly difficult for older adults to absorb from food due to age-related changes in stomach acid production. Vitamin B12 deficiency has been linked to DNA damage that may increase cancer risk, making sardines a protective dietary choice. Additionally, sardines are one of the few food sources that naturally contain vitamin D in significant amounts, which, as we've discussed, plays a crucial role in cancer prevention. Perhaps most impressively, sardines contain phospholipids that may help sensitize cancer cells to treatment. Research published in the journal Anti-Cancer Research found that certain phospholipids can enhance the effectiveness of chemotherapy and may help overcome treatment resistance, a common challenge in elderly cancer patients. For older adults who may be concerned about bone health, sardines offer another benefit, as they're one of the few foods that contain both calcium and vitamin D together, the perfect combination for bone absorption. Since many cancer treatments can accelerate bone loss, maintaining strong bones through dietary sources like sardines may help elderly patients better tolerate cancer treatments if they become necessary. I often recommend that my older patients consume sardines at least twice a week, either on whole grain crackers, mixed into a salad, or even mashed with avocado as a nutrient-dense spread. The third cancer-fighting fish for elderly individuals is anchovies. Like sardines, anchovies are small fish that accumulate minimal environmental toxins while offering impressive nutritional benefits. What makes anchovies particularly valuable for cancer prevention in the elderly is their exceptional content of selenium, an essential mineral with potent anti-cancer properties. Research published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute found that higher selenium levels were associated with reduced risk of bladder, colorectal, lung, and prostate cancers, all of which become more common with age. For elderly individuals, selenium becomes increasingly important because it supports the production and activity of glutathione peroxidase, an enzyme that neutralizes hydrogen peroxide and other damaging compounds that can lead to DNA mutations and cancer initiation. As we age, our natural production of this enzyme decreases, making dietary sources like anchovies increasingly valuable. Anchovies also contain significant amounts of niacin, vitamin B3, which plays a crucial role in DNA repair, a process that often becomes less efficient with age. Recent research from the University of Maryland School of Medicine found that niacin can actually help repair DNA damage in cells, potentially preventing the genetic mutations that can lead to cancer development. What makes anchovies particularly interesting for elderly cancer prevention is their content of specific peptides that have demonstrated anti-angiogenic properties in laboratory studies. Angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels, is a critical process that allows tumors to grow beyond a minimal size, and compounds that inhibit this process may help prevent cancer progression. For elderly individuals who may have precancerous cells present but dormant, dietary anti-angiogenic compounds like those found in anchovies could potentially help keep these cells from developing into full-blown cancer. Additionally, anchovies contain significant amounts of taurine, an amino acid that becomes conditionally essential as we age, meaning our bodies may not produce enough to meet our needs. Research published in the European Journal of Nutrition suggests that taurine may help protect against oxidative stress and inflammation, two key drivers of cancer development in aging tissues. Anchovies can easily be incorporated into an elderly person's diet through pasta sauces, salad dressings, or even as a flavor-enhancing ingredient in soups and stews, where their distinctive taste mellows and adds depth without being overwhelming. The fourth cancer-fighting fish, which might surprise many of you, is herring. This often overlooked fish offers exceptional benefits for elderly cancer prevention. Herring contains some of the highest naturally occurring levels of methylcobalamin, the most bioavailable form of vitamin B12. This is particularly important for older adults, as up to 30% of people over age 50 have atrophic gastritis, a condition that reduces absorption of B12 from food. Vitamin B12 deficiency has been linked to increased DNA damage and cancer risk, making herring a valuable dietary addition. What makes herring especially beneficial for elderly cancer prevention is its high content of a specific type of omega-3 fatty acid called DPA, docosapentaenoic acid, which is less well known than EPA and DHA, but may have even more potent anti-inflammatory effects. Research published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that DPA may be particularly effective at reducing inflammatory markers associated with cancer development and progression. For elderly individuals dealing with chronic inflammation, which increases with age and is a known driver of many cancers, the DPA in herring may offer targeted benefits. Herring also contains significant amounts of creatine, which most people associate with muscle function, but which also plays a crucial role in cellular energy production. As we age, our natural creatine levels decline, potentially leaving cells energy deficient and more vulnerable to damage and mutation. Laboratory studies published in the journal Amino Acids suggest that creatine may help protect against oxidative DNA damage, potentially reducing cancer risk. Perhaps most interesting is emerging research on a compound called cetylleic acid found in herring. Preliminary studies suggest that this fatty acid may help sensitize cancer cells to apoptosis, or programmed cell death, potentially making them more responsive to the body's natural cancer-fighting mechanisms. This is particularly relevant for elderly individuals, as age-related changes in apoptotic pathways can allow damaged cells to survive when they should be eliminated. For older adults concerned about memory and cognitive health alongside cancer prevention, herring offers additional benefits through its high content of phospholipids that support brain health. Since cognitive impairment is a common concern during cancer treatment in the elderly, foods that support both brain and body health are especially valuable. Herring can be enjoyed pickled, smoked, or grilled, though for maximum cancer-fighting benefits, fresh or frozen herring prepared with minimal processing is ideal. Now that we've covered both the problematic fish and beneficial alternatives, let's address how to practically implement these changes in an elderly person's diet, because knowledge without application won't improve health outcomes. The first step is gradual substitution rather than elimination. If your elderly parent or loved one currently enjoys salmon, don't suddenly announce that they can never have it again. Instead, begin introducing wild Alaskan salmon while gradually phasing out farmed varieties. Many older adults are understandably resistant to dietary changes, especially when they involve foods they've enjoyed throughout their lives. Frame these adjustments as additions rather than restrictions whenever possible. Another important consideration is preparation method. Even cancer-fighting fish can become problematic when prepared in certain ways. High-temperature cooking methods like grilling, broiling, or frying can create heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, both known carcinogens. For elderly individuals already at increased cancer risk, gentler cooking methods like poaching, steaming, or baking at lower temperatures are preferable. This is especially important because aging digestive systems often struggle with heavily fried or charred foods anyway, making these cooking adjustments beneficial for both cancer prevention and overall comfort. Portion size and frequency also matter significantly. The cancer-fighting benefits of fish like wild salmon, sardines, anchovies, and herring are most pronounced when they're consumed regularly in moderate amounts rather than occasionally in large portions. Research from the American Institute for Cancer Research suggests that 2 to 3 servings per week of these beneficial fish provides optimal cancer protection without concerns about overexposure to any potential contaminants they might contain. For elderly individuals with smaller appetites, which is common as we age, smaller, more frequent servings may be more manageable and still confer benefits. It's also crucial to consider how these dietary changes interact with medications, which is particularly relevant for older adults who may take multiple prescriptions. Certain fish, particularly those high in vitamin K like sardines, can interfere with blood-thinning medications like warfarin. Always consult with a healthcare provider before making significant dietary changes for an elderly person on medication. Additionally, some cancer treatments may temporarily affect taste preferences or digestive tolerance, requiring adjustments to even the healthiest dietary plans. For elderly individuals who may have difficulty shopping for or preparing fresh fish, there are still ways to incorporate these benefits. High-quality canned wild salmon, sardines, and herring can be nutritionally comparable to fresh varieties and often more accessible. When selecting canned options, look for those packed in water or olive oil rather than soybean or other inflammatory oils, and check that cans are BPA-free to avoid additional chemical exposure. What about supplements? Can elderly individuals simply take fish oil supplements instead of eating fish? While supplements may provide some benefits, research consistently shows that whole food sources are superior for cancer prevention. This is because whole fish contain a complex matrix of nutrients that work synergistically in ways that isolated supplements cannot replicate. That said, for elderly individuals who absolutely cannot or will not consume fish, a high-quality omega-3 supplement may provide some, though not all, of the potential benefits. Another practical consideration is budget, as many elderly individuals live on fixed incomes. While wild Alaskan salmon can be expensive, canned sardines and anchovies are among the most affordable protein sources available, often costing less per serving than even conventionally raised chicken or beef. By replacing some meat meals with these inexpensive fish options, it's possible to improve cancer protection without increasing food costs. For elderly individuals in care facilities or those receiving meals from services like Meals on Wheels, dietary choices may seem more limited. In these cases, it's worth speaking with nutritional coordinators about fish options, as awareness about both the benefits and risks of different seafood choices is growing among healthcare professionals. Many services are increasingly responsive to scientific evidence and resident preferences. Finally, remember that dietary changes exist within a broader context of cancer prevention strategies for the elderly. Regular physical activity, even gentle movement like walking or chair yoga, remains one of the most powerful cancer prevention tools available. Adequate hydration, stress management, and social connection all play important roles as well. The dietary changes we've discussed today should be viewed as part of this more comprehensive approach to reducing cancer risk in older adults, rather than as a standalone solution. To wrap up today's discussion, let's briefly recap the key information. The 4 types of fish that appear to increase cancer risk in the elderly are farmed Atlantic salmon, tilefish, swordfish, and king mackerel. These should be limited or avoided, particularly by those with existing cancer risk factors or compromised immune function. On the beneficial side, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, sardines, anchovies, and herring offer significant cancer-fighting properties through their content of omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, selenium, and other compounds that support the aging body's natural defenses against cancer development. Thank you so much for staying with me through this important information. If you found value in today's video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below sharing which of these fish you'll be adding or removing from your diet. Your engagement helps our content reach more people who might benefit from this knowledge. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos on cancer prevention and treatment strategies specifically designed for older adults. Remember, small dietary changes consistently applied over time can make a significant difference in cancer risk. You have more power than you realize to protect yourself or your loved ones through informed food choices. Until next time, this is Dr. Wilson wishing you health, strength, and hope on your journey. Remember, knowledge isn't just power, it's prevention.